Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Season 1, Episode 18. Not in the mood. Yeah, me too, Bionic Punk. I hope it passes with minimal changes, too. Because, like, that's a law that's been needed for a while, you know? I'm sure this is true in every country, but we are so far behind on, like, patterns and technology in this country. It's actually kind of pathetic. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. So, this is the episode in which there's a mood potion. And that's really all I need to say. Everyone flips personalities. We have a flash forward. I tend to not like those. It's fine here. Corona stands to lose in a trade agreement with Pittsburgh, but they must do it to secure peace. Is this why the economics are not doing well here? Like, he mentions Corona can afford to lose it. Can they? Like, real question. Because we've seen the entire show so far how Corona is not actually doing well economically. And I know. I guarantee you, nobody thought about the economics of Corona the entire show. It's something that's been making me consider, because, like, if they're this close to war, and I should mention this is more like the third time they've mentioned that they're this close to war and they need to secure peace, it's like, I mean, I know this is France, but Jesus. Whatever. So, cut to them getting ready. We've got Cassandra with her halberds, which I'm actually completely with. We got the fog machine, gift baskets, 6 guards per checkpoint, and they start arguing for the third time this week. So, first thought. Why are they arguing so much now? Like, they've never exactly gotten along. But at the same time, they've been doing fine this entire show. Why are they suddenly getting all arguey? I'll come back to that. The more important thing is that they've argued at least 3 times this week, which heavily implies it's been a bare minimum of a week since the previous episode, and no one's checked up on Varian. I'm sorry. I know you're sick of hearing it. I kinda don't care. So here's the deal. You could argue, and you could, Lord Harrimont even argued, that it makes reasonable sense that you don't immediately check up on Varian because she has stress and pain and difficulty and all that kind of stuff. Maybe there's some shame going on. Maybe she's just busy. Maybe there's some restoration efforts. You can make an argument for why she wouldn't immediately, like instantly, go and check up things. But the problem is, it has now been a bare minimum of a week, probably closer to 2 weeks. The excuses get thinner the further down the line we get, you know? Yeah, Varian could literally be dead. His father could literally be dead. I remind you, Kieran was an old friend of her father. So that's like and she was there. She was present for that. So, like, that's a double reason to go check up on all this crap. Jesus Christ. It's not even a day journey. Go check up on him. I'm sorry. The reason I keep hammering this point in is because I guarantee you this is all going to be a part of building up to this moment. And at the very least, she could have reached out to him and figured out what the hell's going on and possibly diffuse the situation. But no. Yeah, Varian was very desperate for help. Panicking, actually. It was the best scene in that episode, as weird as that sounds. Like, as much as I'm coming down on this concept, that scene with Varian freaking out and desperately reaching out to her was perfect. No complaints. No nitpicks. No nothing. It was spot on. It's how you write someone stupid correctly. We've talked about that. It's not idiot ball when someone is doing something that's probably wrong and probably not going to help when they're desperate and afraid and oh my god. And yeah, exactly, Lord Hammond. I didn't want to get into spoilers, but for those of you who were there for the Dragon Quest Builders 2, Dragon Quest Builders 2 run, either of them actually, there's a part in that where it's like, hey, go check up on this. And obviously I care. So my choice is I want to immediately check up on my friend. And then after that. And then after that. And like, you get the point, right? The longer it drags on, the worse it gets. Because the longer it drags on, the less excuse there is. The less reasonability is. Like I said, the shorter the gap in not checking up on this kind of situation, the more it can be reasonable. You can understand it, like Lord Harrimont was saying earlier. The longer this gets stretched out, the more those reasons start to slip away, and it becomes more and more egregious. It's like an itch, and you go and you scratch it, and now it itches more. It just gets worse the longer it goes on. And I'm just sitting here, like, I'm sorry, in the back of my mind is an itch. Why aren't you checking up on this? Back to the side quest. So, we see the confetti cannon, which I don't know if that's a reference, and I don't even care. And then there's this bit where Xavier says, seems our friends are going through a rough patch. Okay, so I wrote down in my notes, make a guess right now, is this magical, or is this just friends being friends? Oh, excuse me. I mean, I kind of do, Lunaruth. I know this sounds weird. I am more invested in the variant story than I am anything else right now. Like, in terms of plot threads. Don't mistake me, there's a lot of characters I like, and there's some cool stuff here, but, like, what's going on with Varian? So, obviously, now that we're at the end of the episode, we can say it's just friends being friends. The mood tonic didn't show up until afterwards. I could buy that. I know what that's like. I'm sure a lot of you do, too. Even with real friends, people you are friends for life, you have those rough patches, right? Usually it's a mood thing. Sometimes you just kind of rub each other the wrong way temporarily. Oh, yeah, I did, Ross. So that makes sense. I do think they exaggerate it because this is a cartoon made for kids, but I can at least buy it, okay? So, sure. Naturally, Xavier, in addition to being the knowledgeable guy about mystic and mythic stuff, happens to have a mood potion on hand and the ability to brew one. Moving on. So naturally they go and they decide to pour the entire batch in. Okay. Yeah, Xavier is, well, he's the GM's NPC, isn't he? So, alright. Immediately that's a bad idea. And then they go to... They did do it on accident. I'm not trying to dish that. Then they spend, and I counted, 16 solid seconds staring dumbly while Eugene, Rapunzel, and Cassandra very, very slowly go and get the things and get the drinks and then talk about how let's have some lemonade and calm down, and then they take the drinks. And I know 16 seconds doesn't sound like a long period of time, but think about how long of time it takes for either Pascal or Max, both of whom are right there, to immediately be like, no, don't drink it. Smack it right out of their hands. We know they're both sentient and sapient. We know they can communicate. We know that they are aware of what's happening and how bad of an idea it is. But no. They just watch. I do like the shift in both voice acting and the music direction as the thing takes effect. And what would be my opposite? Like, what would be the opposite of my personality? Yeah, lots of idiot balling here. It's whatever. I'm just gonna walk over that for a second. Let's be clear. There's actually a lot of idiot balling in this episode, and it does drag the episode down. However, I have to admit that they do some fun stuff with playing around with the character and their archetypes. You could tell the actors were having fun here, right? You could tell the actors were really, oh, that's it, I would be a shill politician. You're right. Oh my God, you're absolutely right. And I wouldn't think about anything. I would just be like, huh. Do this. Oh my God, that sounds like hell. Yeah, no, it's a fun episode. It is. Like, having Cass be so adorable and it's so great. Was actually pretty legit. Having Eugene be all hesitant and afraid makes him better 100%. And having passive-aggressive, teenage, for lack of a way to call it, Rapunzel, was actually pretty good. So you could tell the actors are having fun, and you could tell that they've got some good lines and some good fun stuff. So you know what? I will give you that. I really will. Because you'll notice I've been pretty harsh on this episode, and that's because it's really, really stupid. At least we do get some fun stuff out of it, and that is how that works. So they run around and they have some fun stuff for a bit. I do also like, credit to the episode, I do like how they notice they're acting differently. That's powerful. That's important. It's also yeah, I was surprised by that too, Lord Harriman, because they're like, oh my God, you're right. I'm just being odd and weird, and I don't like this. Can you imagine being aware of like a chemical changing your mood and not being able to do anything about it? Yeah, I don't like to drink or do drugs. Anyways, so there's also this tiny little tidbit which I enjoy, where Cassandra lets in Terror Dude, I don't know his name, and is actually pretty legit about it. He's cool. He's like, thank you for giving compassion a chance. And it's a nice little moment, especially since it pays off later, because it ties into something the whole show and movie have always been about, that Rapunzel reaches out to people by giving them a chance even when she arguably shouldn't. So Cassandra gives this giant terror man a chance, and he turns out to be legit. Go figure. So then they go off and they have to find the one little thing, and they find it, and they come it back, and it's, yes, we've got it back, and they step into a thing, which slices a thing, which makes a thing fall, and now Xavier's unconscious. At this point, you know the GM's just screwing with you, right? Okay, fine, whatever. So they brew it themselves, they put it together, and they get it, and it's like, haha, we've made it! Behold! Now they just have to get it to them. So we cut to Frederick walking in front of his daughter, who is not being well, and we see the Griffin, who is played by John Polito. How many of you know that name? It's okay if you don't. He's in a lot of stuff. He's one of those prolific actors. You've seen him somewhere at some point in time. I was looking him up to see some stuff, and I found out something, very much on accident. This was his last role. He actually died before this episode came out, so the episode released him and his role posthumously, which, as always, sucks. But it is actually kind of interesting, because I didn't expect to just sort of stumble into that. This is a man who is well known for being part of, like the Coen brothers, if you're familiar with them. He was one of their go-to actors for years. And he's usually playing someone who's a lot more serious than a Tangled show, right? And yet, this was his final role, and he apparently threw himself into it. He was a professional, as you know, those kind of people tend to be. I just thought I'd comment on that while we were there, because I was like, I know that voice. I knew it immediately as soon as I heard him. And yes, obviously he's got a little bit of a pride issue and a little bit of a Napoleon issue. We also get a little bit of a hint that the Pittsford really is not doing as well as Corona. In fact, we get a little bit of a vibe, and this is me absolutely reading too much into it, that Corona has been leaning into, like, the economy and the culture side of things, right? You've played a 4X game, right? And you can build up your military and build up your defenses and build up your industry and build up your culture and build up your economy. And all of those things take time and effort and attention. So you can only really focus on one or two at a time, right? You get the vibe. Yeah, exactly. They're going for the wonder victory. You get the vibe that Corona are going for, like, the nice, beatific place to live thing, which admittedly I prefer, the type of play style, and are surrounded by people who didn't. And it might be part of the balancing act going on with the Seven Kingdoms. Or I'm thinking way too much about this because they didn't think about the inner politics whatsoever. Moving on. So, yeah, they're speedrunning a golden age. So then some shenanigans happen. Again, this is the third time now. And now everyone there has a reverse personality. So Ariana becomes crass and crude. That makes sense. The advisor becomes ridiculous. The guards become brutal and violent. The guard captain becomes childish. They flat out say it's supposed to be like your opposite. I'm not sure childish is quite what I would go for the guard captain, because it has that implication that he is primarily mature most of the time. And no, he's actually pretty immature for a lot of his stuff. But I think they were going for him being very adult and responsible and serious. I'm not actually sure. It's just the only one of all of them that made me question, because the one I like the most is Frederick, who becomes a warmongering, brutal dictator type, tyrant type immediately. Which, once again, ties back to what I talked about him going for the Golden Age Wonder Victory. Anyways, so they're in jail. This is all our fault because we suck. Yeah, we already talked about this. Frederick becomes his true self. The Griffin didn't switch personalities at all. I noticed that. I just kept waiting for them to see what the Griffin would turn into. I do like how Eugene unlocked the door immediately, because of course he would, and then sat there bragging about it. God dang it. So this is when Big Guy comes back in, and I know y'all already talked about this in chat, but this is definitely the funniest gag, probably in the entire show. Wait, why didn't your personality reverse? What personality? That's funny twice, because obviously, you know, he's just talking about himself and his own predilections, but also, he's an NPC. He probably doesn't even have a name. I called him Terror Guy in my notes, because even the subtitles didn't put a name in front of him. Anyways. What would I do instead of the guard captain? I would have the guard captain be... very hippie, I think. Like your stereotypical hippie, right? Very loose, very uncaring, and just willing to let things go. Just across the board. It's like, yeah, it's cool. It's whatever, man. Hey, some of my guards over there are fighting. Wow, this tastes terrible. You want some? You know, something like that, right? That's the direction I would probably take him. So, they wrap things up. They fix everyone. You know, they decide to make the peace deal with the Griffin. See you around, John Polito. And he blows his dinghy out at sea. And they decide to just toss the potion into the ocean. Great idea. Which then leads to Varian finding it. Cool. I mean, honestly, tossing a mood potion into the ocean is already a terrible, terrible idea for, like, every reason. So, I'm pretty sure I already know what I'm going to review this episode, but I always like to hear your thoughts and see if you can change my mind on things. So what you got? See, that's what I was thinking, Bionic. Well, you see, Lunaruth, it's because he's the GM. He's not actually interested in helping his players, just poking and prodding them a little bit. Yeah, the itch is still there. I'm going to be honest, the Varian thing is going to keep being bad until they finally do something with that. There was no shorty. I actually noticed that. There was an asshole. We kept our asshole quota. It was just, there were a lot of them. We were surrounded by assholes. But, I will say, so, this is what I call the definitive Yellow episode, right? It is a good episode. It's too stupid and ill thought out to be better, but it's too well constructed and enjoyable to be worse. It is pretty much right in the middle of the road. It is your classic right center, you know, right down the middle Yellow episode. It is good. It's not low Yellow because there's issues. It's not high Yellow because it's approaching greatness. It's good. And that's usually how I tend to define something like Yellow. Or at least I should rephrase it. That's how I originally defined Yellow back in the day before we had to start reviewing multiple shows like this. So I'm leaning towards Yellow personally here. My opinion. We're almost done with season 1. Yeah, I admit that the friends arguing at the beginning was irritating, but they also only did 2 scenes of that. And I'll give them the fact that they were only stupid for 2 scenes, so that helps. Hey, look, public transport. Sorry. I think we will cut off here for the day. Tomorrow, that means tomorrow. I don't want to. I don't want to cut off, but it's getting late. I'm not sure we have enough time for one more episode. But, yeah. Tomorrow we're going to cover Season 1, Episode 19. The Quest for Varian. We're going to see what they do with this.